Knon 89.3 FM in Dallas and Fort Worth, the voice of the people.
Business owners, tell KNON's listeners about your business. You can put your business or event on KNON. KNON currently has space available to run announcements for you. Tell KNON's listeners about your goods, services, nightclub, concert, or event. Help keep the voice of the people on the air while putting your information on the air. KNON's been named the #1 radio station in Dallas by both the Dallas Observer and D Magazine. Put your business with Dallas's #1 station. Call now for more information at 214-828-9500, extension 227. Or extension 233. For more information, go to knon.org and click on the Run Spots on KNON page. It's a great way for your business to support community radio while letting more people know about you.
1, 2, 3.
Merry Christmas, everybody! And Happy Hanukkah!
Much better.
And good afternoon and welcome to Lambda Weekly. I'm Dave Taffet. I'm here in the studio with my, as Patti reminded me, loyal lieutenants.
Yes.
The late Patti Fink and Lerone Landis.
Well-informed loyal lieutenants.
Well-informed loyal lieutenants, but on Facebook when somebody questioned or you questioned, I promoted you for Christmas.
Thank you.
You're now majors.
Majors.
I'll take that.
Absolutely, thank you.
I thought you deserved a promotion.
Oh, well, thank
you. That's exciting.
This has been a good year.
That didn't come with any cash, does it?
No.
Okay.
No promotion. No.
Titles are cheap.
Apparently very cheap.
And that's what I want to give you is a nice, cheap end-of-year gift.
And your salary remains the same.
As long as you didn't decrease it.
No, I did not decrease your salary.
Yeah, because I don't know how you can get below zero.
Well, you'd have to pay.
By
Yeah,
pledge drive, by pledging every quarter during pledge drive. We're going to talk a little bit of news this week. Florida, it becomes marriage equality state number 36.
36.
On January 6th.
5th.
6th?
6.
The stay lasts until January 5th.
Gotcha.
So.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So it becomes marriage equality state the next day when people can actually get married.
Right.
In Florida.
In Florida.
I'm just so pissed about this. First it was Oklahoma,
Right.
and then Arkansas, and now it's Florida.
Well, I'm not surprised that Florida came before us, though.
Why?
I mean...
Because we have one liberal county and they have 3?
There you go.
Actually, we have 2 if you want to count Travis also.
You want to count Travis.
Right.
But no, Florida's a swing state. It's not that conservative. Now, compared to us.
Have you been there?
Oh, yeah, I have been there.
Outside of Miami, Fort Lauderdale, and Palm Beach?
I went to Orlando.
Oh, that's pretty Republican up there. Yeah.
But no, compared to Texas, come on.
Yeah, they had Jeb Bush, we had George Bush. Completely
They got
different.
Dan Bondi, we've got Greg Abbott.
Right. And both times, in the past 2 elections, where did it go to? Obama.
True.
Well, Florida did vote for Obama. That's right. That's right.
Both times. So, I mean, it's not Texas. So I'm not surprised.
Okay, so here, Patti, tell us what happened there. Because this is an interesting, who do we actually credit for this?
Yeah, this is kind of strange.
I say thank you, Clarence Thomas.
So the...
2 phrases you never thought would be in the same sentence from me.
Yes. Yeah, very strange. Mark your calendars, people.
What happened in Florida?
Well, the case was moving through, as in all of these states, where much like Texas, where we have 10 suits in play. There's a case for marriage equality moving through the court system, and the federal judge ruled that the Florida ban was unconstitutional.
Just like judges have done in most of the other states. There are 1, 2, 3. I think there are 5 states left. Georgia, Alabama, North and South Dakota, and Nebraska that have had no rulings. Other than that, every state has had a ruling.
And this ruling that Patti's referring to happened back in August.
Yeah. And it was by Judge Robert Hinkle, who put a stay on it to last through January 5th, which is coming up, right? So I guess to kind of sort of preempt that, the Florida's Attorney General, Pam Bondi, four-time marrier.
Three-time marriage.
Is she on her third marriage?
She's on her third marriage.
Okay, I
now.
thought
Yeah.
she had been divorced 3 times.
No,
Yeah.
no.
Okay, so a three-time marrier. Went to the Supreme Court to get an extension of the stay. And, you know, in our system of federal courts and such, and this is true certainly with like death penalty appeals for stay of execution and such, each justice on the United States Supreme Court oversees a certain circuit. And this circuit, the 11th Circuit, is one that Justice Clarence Thomas, overseas. And so it went to him. And he gets to decide whether to ask the whole court to be involved, or he can just make the ruling by himself.
Now, back at the beginning of the year, I guess the end of last year, there was the Utah ruling. That was the end of December. For 2 or 3 weeks, people in Utah could get married. The state appealed, and that circuit is under Sotomayor. So what she did the same thing. She could either have decided herself, no, I'm not going to stay that, or go to the whole court. The whole court decided, and I'm saying the whole court, the majority on the court decided that there should be a stay in the Utah case, which also affected the Oklahoma case. And so because of Sotomayor, she gets the blame for it. She does, because she could have just not stayed it. But at that point, the Supreme Court hadn't heard anything. In October, several cases were presented to the Supreme Court. They decided not to hear any of those cases, which was kind of an interesting decision, because at that time that was saying there's nothing urgent in these cases, that we need to hear them immediately. So that was giving an indication how the court's feeling. Marriage just isn't hurting anybody. It's just nothing urgent. So, and when I say nothing urgent legally.
Right.
It just wasn't hurting anything. There was not a problem. But when they lifted those bans, that's when the 4th Circuit from Virginia, that's when the 10th Circuit, Utah and Oklahoma, or Utah, the Oklahoma case, all these cases all these states became marriage equality states. So now,
and it was from the Supreme Court's non-decision, actually.
It was the Supreme Court's non-decision.
It wasn't a ruling or an opinion. It was just a non-decision.
But that in itself is some decision. What it's saying, it's not talking about the merits of the case, but it is talking about kind of the non-merits of the case. It is saying there's nothing urgent here that we have to rule on.
Right. Let the lower court stand.
But
anyway, okay.
I was going to say, but to be clear about the Florida, this recent decision by with the Florida case, it was noted that Justice Scalia and Thomas would have granted the application.
And just like Sotomayor, we're assuming is in favor of marriage equality because she did vote for the DOMA case, for the Edie Windsor case. We're assuming that she's going to vote on the side of marriage equality. But she decided to stay the case until it worked its way through. She decided to go to the full court, and the full court decided, basically. With Thomas, he could have said, right, I agree with that. I'm going to stay this. And until I want to give Florida a fair chance to present their case to the circuit court, and from the circuit court to bring it to the Supreme Court, and until then, people in that state aren't going to get married. He could have done that.
And what's so amazing about it is that it's much like our case in Texas, where it's now at the federal level. It's just entering the federal level. And so that hasn't even been heard yet.
And that's the point I was going to focus on, Patti. That's actually the big news in this decision. This is the first time that the Supreme Court has denied a stay when it hasn't been heard in a federal court yet, in a circuit court.
And I think it's so bizarre.
That's huge.
It is huge.
Well, and
because what's going to happen now? Is the circuit court going to go back and reverse what the Supreme Court has already denied?
The other part of it that's huge is that Scalia and Thomas are in favor of the stay. We know how they're going to vote on marriage equality. But Alito and Roberts voted with the other 5.
Yeah, they did.
They did not vote with the other 5 in the Windsor case, but they voted not to stay marriage in Florida, in effect saying the stay ends. You can't go anywhere else other than the Supreme Court. Marriage starts in Florida on January 6th, period. Marriage equality state number 36. 14 left. Texas will be number 50.
And there's nowhere. Yeah. Well, we're certainly
Still pushing
trying.
for that 50.
But you know what's interesting too is that we should be trying that in Texas. I think. But just skip the trial court judge. Just go right to the Supreme Court because there's nowhere else to go after that. You know, they lift the stay. There's no place for Florida to go. Maybe that's what Texas should do. Although we're being heard on January 9th.
We're being heard on January 9th?
9th.
Yes.
At 11 a.m.
So is
in New Orleans.
Louisiana. So is the Mississippi case. So those 3 cases, because that's the Fifth Circuit: Mississippi, Louisiana, and Texas. Those 3 cases will be heard, and we're hoping there's a decision pretty quickly.
And what's interesting too is that they're back to back. So if you really want a part of history, you need to be in New Orleans at 9 a.m. on Friday the 9th. At 9 a.m. they're going to start with an hour of argument from both sides from Louisiana. Louisiana in its home state gets to go first, I guess. And then at 10 o'clock is going to be Mississippi. And 11 o'clock will be Texas. And so each state has an hour of argument on both sides. So it'll be interesting if you can get a seat in that courtroom to hear that history go, because it's, you know, scheduling wise, if you can be in that courtroom, you just keep your seat.
Right.
And just go all the way through till noon.
Now, we're not really necessarily expecting a good decision from them.
No.
The Fifth Circuit is generally considered the most conservative circuit of the 11 circuits. And the Sixth Circuit has already ruled that a state can limit marriage.
Right.
It was a
Very narrow ruling, 2-1.
And a very weak ruling. I mean, it was, you know, the whole bestiality and, you know, having sex with your horse. Did we talk about last week the guy,
wedding dress on the horse?
The guy,
Yes.
We did.
Yeah, the guy who put a wedding dress on his horse and took it to Jackson outside the courthouse to protest.
Yeah.
Okay, you know, it's
only the straight people
it's
who
only
go
the straight
there.
people who want that.
I know.
The corner went to the boxer turtle. You know?
Maybe what it is, it's not a matter of they're trying to limit gay people from getting married. It's that they're afraid straight people are going to start marrying their horses.
Must be, because it's so bizarre.
I don't know any gay people who are planning on marrying their toasters or, you know, bringing their cats to the county courthouse. Do you?
No.
Not a single one.
I don't either.
Not a single one.
So anyway, it's kind of this odd decision. Clarence Thomas would have stated, but he didn't. He went to the full court, and he stated he's against it, but he went with the full court's opinion. I mean, that's very fair. I give him credit, because he could have stopped it.
It's hard for me, too. But I understand what you mean. I do understand what you mean.
Oh, he wouldn't take that as a compliment from me. I mean, I'm not saying it because I want my message to get to him, and he'll say, see,
Right.
finally people from both sides appreciate what I do. That's not what's happening.
No.
I'm just like so blown away too that he did anything at all.
That too.
Because he never makes a peep. He always agrees with Antonin Scalia. Always. He never asks questions.
Right. During questioning, during
Oral argument, he never asks a question.
And when you say never, it's been years since he's made
Yeah, and he's only
even a
asked like
comment.
one question his entire tenure, you know, since the 80s.
Yeah.
Or the early 90s, actually. You know, which is really bizarre. And so here he like took some action that was going to have to be more than just, you know, grunting, basically.
Well, but he had to.
But once again, you know, he affirmed himself by agreeing with Antonin Scalia.
Exactly.
So.
Exactly.
So, you know, one other thing that I want to mention, you mentioned Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, and every time, I've seen this in all kinds of articles, they always refer to her as Pam Bondi, the Attorney General who's been married 3 times. And it really is one of those just nasty things. It's like a little poke, and why are you doing it? I think it's appropriate in this case.
Oh, I think it's completely appropriate.
Yeah, totally.
I think not mentioning it is leaving something out. Because if she's really defending traditional marriage as it's existed since biblical times, we've heard that phrase so many times, that's not it. Women didn't divorce their husbands, go on, marry the next one. That's not biblical marriage.
It would be like
Women didn't divorce their husbands, period.
Right.
They had no choice in the matter.
Right.
it would be like Rush Limbaugh criticizing somebody for going to rehab.
Right.
It's, it's like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's very, very appropriate because she's the last person who should be defending the state's marriage laws. Okay, so Fifth Circuit, we think, is going to vote against us. What do you think what's the rationale for them to
Well, I think it's
support
going to be
states'
really
rights?
interesting because the Louisiana case in particular actually said that the ban was okay. So in Mississippi and Texas, that was not the case. So the rationales are, I think they're going to have to deal with them separately. But certainly the Texas case has a positive ruling for us underneath it, and so it's coming into the oral arguments as a winner. Marriage equality wins because there's no valid reason. And the convoluted Greg Abbott rationale, the illogic, I think it's going to be hard for them, even with a straight face, pun intended. It's going to be really difficult.
There was a move to consolidate these three cases, and the Fifth Court said no. What are the three different issues? Because there are some slightly different issues. I think we are asking for just the right to get married. And is it Mississippi who's asking for the right to recognize same-sex marriages?
My understanding was that Texas and Mississippi were both to perform, conduct, and recognize.
Each state, Idaho has said also to the Supreme Court, wait until we file our appeal because ours is different than everybody else's. They're not different. You want to get married somewhere in the United States and you want it recognized everywhere in the United States. Straight people get that. And there's no question. And in fact, Lerone, you were married in Canada. Other people married in Canada, straight or gay, their marriages are, or if they're straight, their marriages are recognized in the United States too. So, it's just all these. Each state, mine is different. Right. It's not different.
No, it's not different.
It's not really different.
And they can throw all kinds of stuff at the wall and see what sticks, but it's all the same stuff going against the wall.
They've been throwing all that stuff.
Every state's been doing it in all of their cases.
And there is nothing
sticking.
The only argument that I can see that even makes sense, it's offensive, but that makes sense. It's not because we're going to marry our toasters. It's not because it's going to lead to anything else other than marriage is marriage is marriage. It's not going to lead to a general population decline because people will suddenly stop having kids. All of those are
according to Pat Robertson, but we'll get to that.
We'll get to that right after the break. It's not the only argument that actually is a logical argument or a legal argument is a state has a right to limit who can get married to someone else, period. And that's the only thing that they can actually argue. You're listening to Lambda Weekly on 89.3 Knon FM. I'm Dave Taffet here in the studio with the late Patti Fink and Lerone Landis. We'll be back with more right after this.
This is Janice McCall from TCU, and I listen to the Lambda Week on 89.3 Knon FM, Dallas.
And this is the Lambda Weekly. I'm Dave Taffet here in the studio with the late Patti Fink and the early Lerone Landis. And
I was. It was very early.
It is. You were.
Yeah.
Entertainment report time.
Okay. Not only is the openly gay British singer Sam Smith up for 6 Grammys this year, including the big prize, Album of the Year, Sam has also become the only artist to sell 1 million albums in both the U.S. and the U.K. His debut record, The Lonely Hour, was confirmed to have passed the milestone by Nielsen Music and UK's official charts company in the past 48 hours. Now, that's huge, so congratulations to him. But talk about a swing in the music industry. 1 million albums, that doesn't sound like a lot. When you listen, look back in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s, and artists sold like 20, 30, 40 million albums, but because of the way music is purchased these days, i.e. downloaded, nobody really buys albums anymore. So
it just kind of makes me sad.
it does, doesn't it? Yeah. I miss the days of going into like Tower Records, just being in there for hours, just listening and looking at different music. There's nowhere you can do that anymore.
iTunes.
iTunes.
You can't go anywhere. You do it at home now.
Right. I like going in there.
I do
look
too.
at it, and I mean, like Best Buy and Walmart, they have a small little section, but it's nothing like a full store.
Well, and it's just, I love album art too, and
yes,
that whole kind of tie together.
All that's gone.
That
That's
whole
gone.
culture of that, it's gone because you don't get album art.
I mean, the other thing that's gone, basically bookstores.
Yeah.
You order them online. I like going to a bookstore and flipping through books and deciding which one I want to buy. You can't flip through a book online. I don't get buying books on Amazon, other than I need this book. I want this particular book, and you order it. But
you order a hard copy, right? There's so many e-readers now. People don't even buy the books.
Exactly. Yeah, I still buy hard copies.
You know what I think is the best use of the e-reader kind of world is textbooks.
Yeah.
Why haul all of those around? Where
Yes.
you could put, a kid in school could have an iPad.
And a lot of
or
schools
something.
have gone towards that way.
I just think that's so ridiculous. All the paper that it costs to print them.
because they get thrown out at the end of the semester with the updated versions. So you have to, you can't buy a used copy of that $200 book. You have to buy
the new $210
That's
version.
ridiculous. Yeah.
So that would be the best.
Apple's openly gay CEO Tim Cook made a big personal donation to the Human Rights Campaign as part of his initiative to help advance LGBT equality in the South, specifically Arkansas, Mississippi, and Cook's native home, which is Alabama. I didn't know that he was from Alabama. HRC did not disclose the amount, but said that the donation was generous. So that's.
I bet it's in the millions.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Probably.
So.
And
Thank you.
Tim Cook, who just came out this year, who we talked about being out 3 years ago.
Oh,
Right.
yeah,
Something
he's
like that. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. I
Yeah.
just want to.
the biggest
Mention that.
open secret around.
Right. It's kind of like when Anderson Cooper finally came out. It's like, what's new about
Patty,
that?
see if you can get him for the show next week.
Anderson Cooper.
Well, either Anderson or Cook.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good, thank you.
I'll just dial him up on my iPhone.
The now late comedian Joan Rivers' will was filed with the New York court earlier this month, and so it's public. And it revealed that her daughter, no surprise, that her daughter Melissa Rivers was named the executor of her $150 million trust. Now, most of the money was left to friends and family, but a substantial chunk of it was donated to the AIDS charity God's Love We Deliver. Now, this charity was set up in New York back in 1985. Deliver food to men who were, at the height of the AIDS crisis, and now it's still around. Provides over 4,600 meals every week to people in New York and New Jersey. That's awesome. So
That's really cool.
That's really cool. So you go, Joan Rivers. I mean, I think we've said it before. I don't think many people knew that side of her, that, because she was so crass in her comedy. You would think she's just a mean person in real life, but not at all.
Oh, everybody who knew her.
Very giving person.
And at the Dallas Voice, we'd interviewed her several times whenever she was, performing in the area or whatever. And Arnold, who is the one who's always interviewed her, also agreed. Nicest person.
Yeah.
Easiest to get through to, and, never any pretense, nothing. Just... It was her being her.
Yeah.
Well, anyone who can continue a career into her 80s,
Absolutely.
I think has, we think of her as kind of crude and crass, but she really has a lot of class.
She did. Yeah.
She did, and
She did.
and that's just a more.
Yeah, more evidence of that, yeah.
Are you planning on retiring? I'll be here in my 80s. I'm not going anywhere.
You'll certainly have a career in radio.
So thank you for.
Absolutely.
What did you just call me?
I don't know if she called you anything.
Well, she called Joan Rivers, and I'm.
Oh, crass.
Crass and crude?
No.
Classy.
Classy.
Yeah, there you go.
Thank
you. All right. And last, congratulations to Lance Bass, who finally tied the knot with his partner of 3 years, Michael Turchin, in Los Angeles. The head of planning I mean, I'm sorry, they had a wedding, but the same wedding planner who did Kim Kardashian and Kanye West's wedding. So it was huge, and I'm not even going to go into detail about everything, but it incorporated traditions from Bass's Southern Baptist upbringing and Church's Jewish heritage. There was a
Church is Jewish?
Yeah. Turchin. I'm sorry, Turchin.
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 I thought his name was Church.
No, Turchin.
That would be interesting, wouldn't it?
Just odd.
Yeah. All of the bandmates from NSYNC were there except for Justin Timberlake. He's on tour. And also, congratulations to Elton John. He also got married today.
Today, yes,
Yeah.
just a few hours ago in England, and they were married, and they'd had a civil partnership ceremony, which was available to them back in 2005. 12 years ago, 12 years together. And they have 2 children, Zachary Jackson Levon Furnish John, it's Furnish-John, and Elijah Joseph Daniel Furnish John. So
Too many names.
it's a,
So
well,
cool.
that's the British do that. Philip
too many
George
names.
Arthur.
I'm sorry.
They did the hyphenated thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they did.
Too many names.
That is a lot of names.
So congrats. They're just a few hours old.
Yeah, just a few hours
their
old.
marriage.
Congratulations to them. I mean, when did England legalize same-sex marriage?
Just this year.
Just this year?
Yeah.
And Scotland.
And Scotland just last week or a week before.
And Ireland likely will in the coming year.
Yes.
Northern Ireland, no.
Right.
It's not coming up for a vote in Northern Ireland, but Scotland, Wales, and England all this year.
Right.
So, actually, Wales might have been earlier. I think they were the first.
I have a couple more
you have-
entertainment
yeah.
Okay.
items. Now, we've always thought of him as like one of our team, but Prince Albert of Monaco, who is recently married, is now the father of twins. So they have royal twins.
Wow.
But
Have you ever been to Monaco? You lived in
I
that
have.
area.
I have
love
been to
Monaco.
Monaco.
I haven't been there in years, but it's such a silly little place. It's about the size of Central Park in New York, something like that. I mean, it's not even.
It's one big bay.
It's about the size of downtown Dallas, not all of Dallas.
That's
It's
small.
tiny.
Very
It's
small.
tiny.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's basically a bay with hillside.
It's several blocks up the hillside around the bay.
Around the bay, yeah. And
It's
then
gorgeous.
There's stuff all in there.
Yeah.
So, anyway, so they have royal twins. However, it was a girl and a boy, and the girl was born first, but she's not in line for the crown.
Ah.
She's not first. It's the boy because
It's the boy.
Unlike in England,
Monaco
where they've got away with that. rule.
Monaco has a law that if the chain of succession were to die out from the Grimaldis, who've been in power since the 1200s, something like that, that Monaco reverts to France.
Oh, well,
So
there
they
you go.
have to have an heir, a male heir. It has to be male.
Interesting.
Yep. Well, that's the case now. They have one. So, and of course, the birth took place at the Princess Grace Hospital in Monaco. So, that's really lovely. Then I have another quick item.
Okay.
The Advocate reported this week that Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie have their oldest of their biological children, Shiloh, has for years now preferred to wear suits and boys' clothing, and wants to be called John. And
Yeah,
they're supportive of that.
Yeah,
They have been.
I've
from
been
the beginning.
tracking that pretty much ever since she was like a toddler. And if you see pictures of her now, you would mistake, oh, that's a cute little boy.
And gorgeous.
Yeah, very cute. I mean, how could she not be?
She looks like both of them, and
yeah.
with blue eyes, and really gorgeous.
But I haven't seen them actually say that she's transgender yet. So we don't know.
How old is?
I think she's 5, 6 now.
She's 8.
8. Okay.
Yeah, but
Okay.
she's been wanting to be called John, and everyone in the family has called her John since the age of 3.
Wow.
So I think that's really very interesting.
Called him John.
Called him John. Yes. So
And next time Nell is on, I want to ask her, is that too young to call that child transgender? I mean, we're respecting the preferred sex. It's not that.
I had a huge debate with somebody at work about this very issue. They were heterosexual women for all intent and purposes, very gay friendly and trans supportive, but she's, and I'm sure a lot of
cis female.
yeah, just female. Just when it came to children and transgender and No, absolutely not. You leave them alone and wait till they turn 18. And I'm sure she's not the only one.
Well,
even in our community, who felt that way.
Children don't transition until they're 18.
Now, some do. Some do.
It's when they hit puberty.
Yeah, there are cases.
They're not doing any surgery, though, before at that age?
No surgery, but definitely hormone therapy.
There is some
many
hormone
cases.
therapy, yeah.
When they hit puberty, which differs by person.
Right. Absolutely. So that's just one of those issues. I'm like, that's between the parents and the doctors. I don't know what I would do either. But either way, I think you need to respect and love them. So.
No, I think that's great. Don't you have a story about our friend Pat Robertson?
Yeah.
That belongs in entertainment.
It's definitely entertainment.
I think it's entertainment for sure. And then we also have This Week in Michelle Bachmann, which is going to be probably our last one. So there's a lot of entertainment today. Pat Robertson has done it again. How many times have we heard this? Well, somebody called in because their church doesn't allow heterosexual dating within the church. So
they only allow homosexual dating?
Well,
or they don't allow dating?
It sounds like they don't allow dating.
Oh, okay.
But so his response to this caller was, those who are homosexual will die out because they don't reproduce. You have to have heterosexual sex to reproduce. Same thing with that church. It's doomed. It's going to die out because it's the most nonsensical thing I've heard in a long time. So, we're all...
It's just laughable.
So why didn't we die out in the first century or before, when straight people were having gay kids since time began?
And still are.
And still are, and still will.
And still will, exactly. He clearly doesn't know how we got here.
Yeah. How most of us got here.
Exactly.
Or that gay and lesbian couples have kids.
Now, how old is he? He's in his 80s, isn't he?
Yeah,
he has to be.
He's way up there. I don't have his age.
I'm just so surprised that they still let him on TV.
Well, he has his own show.
Since he owns the network.
No, that's true.
He gets to do what he wants.
That's true.
We have a station manager who'll be here into his 90s, and
but
we have to let him on the air because...
But, sometimes, a friend would be like, hey, it's time to come sit down. We love you. You've done some good things for this station, but let's come sit down.
And the reason I ask how old is he, what my question is he that stupid? Or do you think it's time to stop making fun of him and just kind of pity him?
Well, I think the latter is definitely true, but I think the first is true too.
Yeah,
I think he is that stupid. I think he thinks of us as objects rather than people with real lives, and I think he thinks of us as sort of like zoo creatures or something. Because he doesn't speak about us as if we're really people. He really doesn't.
Well, and that's why you can only laugh so much, because not only is he obviously not all there and how he thinks, there are followers who believe that stuff. They believe that crap. So you can't laugh too much.
Okay, so this week is Michelle Bachmann's last week?
Yes, but I just got a text from Nell. She's listening.
Okay.
And I was hoping to have Nell on today, but she was
Hi, Nell.
Hi, Nell.
Listening.
Feel better?
She says, no, it's not too young if the child identifies as trans.
Okay, good.
So
That's what I thought.
there you go. And then Erin, and she's in Louisiana right now, said, because Shiloh is such a feminine name.
Right.
So, good point.
But most people I know who are transgender want to change their name because it's part of changing the identity. The only person I know who didn't is Jamie Spradlin, who's been on our show several times. Jamie always said, "Yeah, I'm glad that I had that name because I couldn't remember another name." She said I wouldn't answer if people called me something different, but. I think that's what it is. I think it's more part of, I want you to identify me as somebody who's not that person. I'm this person.
Yeah, and basically identify as who I am.
Yeah.
Regardless of who you thought I was before or named me.
Right.
And Nell adds to it, and at puberty, medical intervention would initially be puberty blockers, entirely reversible until they're older and ready to start hormone treatment.
Okay.
So thank you, Nell, for that.
Yeah, and I guess that's what I was saying. There's nothing that's irreversible with children.
Right.
So, because with children, they're still exploring, and that's why I was asking, Is that person transgender? Is there some other term for exploring? But transgender is fine.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, so this week in Michelle Bachmann.
Well, Michelle Bachmann is leaving. She was horribly defeated in her last election in the midterms, so she's done for, and so she did as part of her departure. In the statuary hall where they have, like, after the inauguration of a president, they go and have lunch there in the Capitol building. She was in the statuary hall giving her farewell speech and such, and she did hip hop.
I saw this. It was hard to watch.
Can you unsee it?
I wish I could. I wish I could. It was really hard to watch.
I missed it. I'm sorry.
She did her own version of Thrift Shop by Macklemore.
Yes.
So we missed that, but hopefully.
It was something on the same lines. I don't know if y'all remember, God, this is when we were back at the Crack House. George Bush got on stage and danced with Ricky Martin. That was hard to watch also. This was probably harder to listen to than that was to watch.
Awkward.
Yeah, exactly.
Really awkward.
Yeah.
And then she claims that her son taught her how to do that on a family trip. So thank you, son.
Exactly.
So she gave this big speech, and she's talked mostly about God. And then she cited the Ten Commandments as the law we should be following. And it's...
Yes, because the Ten Commandments are in the Constitution, aren't they?
Yes. But she did have...
Didn't Moses go up to Mount Sinai and he brought down tablets that said, "We the people," in order to form a more perfect union?
That must have been it. Because according to her, that's the way it's happened, the way we should live.
Or was it that Moses went up to Mount Sinai Hospital?
Mount Sinai Hospital would be more believable, I would think, right? It was the second set of tablets. Right. Well, she also claims that there is sexism in Congress.
I can't believe that.
It's just shocking. So, anyway, she says, I'll be involved in 2016 one way or another. I'm not looking to be at being a candidate, but I fully intend to be involved. This is a huge election where now we are teed up, both in the House and the Senate, for the repeal of Obamacare. When I ran for president in 2012, that was my motivation. I wanted to repeal Obamacare. I think that there will be a momentum for that in 2016, and I want to be part of that voice to help that happen.
Good for you, Michelle.
So bye-bye.
Bye-bye. You're listening to Lambda Weekly on 89.3 Knon FM. I'm Dave Taffet here in the studio with Lerone Landis and the late Patti Fink. We'll be back with more right after this.
This is Jason Wright from Dallas, and I listen to Lambda Week 89.3 KLON.
And that was Hanukkah in Santa Monica. Happy Hanukkah to everybody out there. No, Patty, I'm not playing a Christmas song. There's enough of that on the air elsewhere. Patty, you brought in something that you want to do that we haven't done in a while.
Yes, those
It's
darn
time
heterosexuals.
for
Those darn heterosexuals.
Who starts?
I think I do.
Okay.
Yeah. A New Mexico heterosexual woman with an affinity for rabbits has run afoul of the law after her rascally pets started multiplying, well, like rabbits. Rio Rancho police said the woman was cited under an ordinance that allows 5 pets per household after an animal control officer found 334 bunnies hopping around in her yard. Is that a typo?
No.
Oh my God.
We're talking rabbits.
Wow. The officer spotted animals running after a neighbor complained about the rabbits eating her garden. The rabbit raiser said her husband rescued and abandoned rabbits 12 years ago, and they began rescuing more bunnies. The couple kept the males separated from the females, but the male rabbits hopped the fence, and things got out of control. Wow, you can't keep them penned up.
In a dispute with her former common-law husband, a Houston area woman fried their pet goldfish and ate some of them. Pasadena police say it's a civil matter and no charges will be filed. The 7 goldfish were purchased together by the couple during happier times. When the couple split, they argued about some jewelry that the man had given her, but took back, and she wanted the jewelry returned. The man refused to return the jewelry and later reported that the woman took the goldfish from his apartment. Officers arrived at the woman's home to find 4 fried goldfish on a plate. She had already eaten the other 3.
Terry James, 29, filed a lawsuit recently in San Diego against San Diego Christian College because it fired her for being pregnant and unmarried, a violation of specific employee rules. She said the firing was obviously illegal gender discrimination because her job was quickly offered to the next most qualified candidate, her fiancé, who was openly cohabiting with James all along and is the baby's father.
Wow. Authorities in Massachusetts say a family that got lost in a 7-acre corn maze called 911 for help, apparently taking advantage of the police department's motto that says, we want to be bothered. The maze at Connor's Farm in Danvers can take up to an hour to navigate. Police officer entered the maze with the farm manager to search for the disoriented father, mother, and 2 children. The family didn't realize that they had almost made their way out and were just 25 feet away from the street. Farm owner Bob Connors confessed that they designed the maze so that people get lost in the long corn stalks. Wow.
3 men committed a home invasion of a Houston residence last spring, and although 2 escaped, 1 wound up in the hospital and under arrest. The 3 men kicked in a door and shut the resident in an upstairs closet while they ransacked the home, but they failed to inspect the closet first and thus did not realize that it was the resident's handgun storage closet. A few minutes later, the resident emerged, locked and loaded, and wounded one of the men in the shoulder and leg.
And this is just a religion used for good story. The 14 guests at a jewelry party in Lake City, Florida, were initially incredulous that home invader Derek Lee, 24, meant to rob them. But when they saw that he was serious by putting his gun to the head of one of the women, the hostess went into action. "In the name of Jesus," she shouted, "get out of my house now." Then the guests started chanting in unison, "Jesus, Jesus, Jesus," over and over. Lee, frightened or bewildered, sprinted out of the home empty-handed and was later arrested.
And that's this week's
Those darn heterosexuals.
Yeah, we need to bring that back every once in a while.
We do.
Have some good
We
ones.
do.
This week, Dallas County considered extending family medical leave to not just gay and lesbian people who are couples, but also to single employees. The proposal, the reason that they're doing it this way is to stay within Texas's unconstitutional marriage law.
Right.
But the idea really, I like it for this reason. If you're married, obviously you can take off family medical leave. You can take off for a parent, you can take off for a child, you can take off for your spouse. If you're gay or lesbian, you can't take off for your spouse. This allows you to name somebody. So if you are married and you're gay or lesbian, you can name your same-sex spouse. But it also is fair. What about single people? Mm-hmm. You might have that best friend or roommate that you really do share expenses with. I shared a house for 8 years with somebody. He was not my husband. I called him my husband. We even answered the census as if we were married, but we weren't. And he had nobody else here to take care of him if there was something. So It was appropriate at the time. So I like this proposal. They discussed it at the Commissioners Court meeting on Tuesday, and it goes in for a 30-day comment period from elected officials and managers, and Elba Garcia expects it'll pass when it comes back to the...
And I think it's fantastic. I think for a lot of people, particularly single people, but for others as well, there are really important relationships in their lives. And whether they're the employee or the one being cared for, I think it's really important, for example, like if you're raised by your grandmother or by a close family friend, and that really was that parent for you, but they're not legally, you can still be able
that
to
was
take
the
care of
one
them.
question. The questions about same-sex spouse, obvious. I mean, there was no discussion on it. The discussion was FMLA covers parent, child, spouse. It doesn't cover grandparent, grandchild. So what if the grandparent is raising 2 or 3 grandchildren? You can name one person. What about the other kids? And the person from Human Resources said, "Ooh, I'll have to get back to you on that." So they do have some things to work out just to make this workable for today's families.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And it wasn't that they didn't want to. It was, well, what about this case? What about this case? Right now, the policy is family leave can be given at the discretion of a supervisor. They've never had a problem with it. Anybody who's come to them and said, you know, my partner, my husband, whatever, is sick, they've given it to him. This is just to make it clear, to make it equal, to give everybody a chance. Another piece of great news this week is that the Justice Department ruled that transgender is covered under Title VII of the 1964 Civil Rights Act. That's fabulous news.
I think it's really fantastic.
I think so too.
And what that means is employers cannot discriminate against transgender people. Period. You're covered already.
So is that under the sex or gender?
Comes under sex discrimination.
Yes. So I've always thought, why couldn't it be protected under that?
Well, and Obama had proposed that several years ago, but this was Eric Holder who wrote a letter to whoever he writes letters to, but he wrote a memo, though, extending coverage.
So I wonder how that's going to play in a place like Plano that just passed this alleged non-discrimination ordinance and quote equal rights, but really leaves the trans community out in the cold in a really bad way. So they cannot by federal law be discriminated against in the workplace, and yet they could be denied restroom, privileges. Basically, in the very workplace?
I would think if they were challenged in court, I mean, federal law trumps.
Depends on the court, depends on on the city and the town or the state that's doing the interpreting. But it's better to have this on your side, and when it goes to the Supreme Court, again, the Supreme Court could come back and say, no, it doesn't. They could.
They could.
That's not normal. That hasn't happened with the Civil Rights Act. If anything, the courts have expanded the Civil Rights Act, but
then look what they did to the Voting Rights Act.
But then look what they did with the Voting Rights Act is right.
Well, this is interesting because that means federally they have jumped further than we have. There's still no protections for us.
Yes.
But even with that, I've always thought, why can't we be protected under the same thing?
And you know something? I had somebody in the trans community say to me a long time ago, don't think you're not discriminated against because of gender identity. If you're being discriminated against, it's because of the way you're being perceived, and you're not being perceived as being the stereotypical male. Patty, you're a big butch dyke, and so
thank you.
People could fire, an employer would fire you, but you're being you. We are being fired. When we're fired from a job, it's generally not because of sexual orientation, because if you work for a company where it's really not appropriate to be talking about it, you tend not to. It's because of how you act.
Well, it's not only gender identity, but gender expression.
Right. And gender expression. I don't mean identity. I mean expression.
Roles are really
yes.
so. I mean, there's, when we talk about what is masculine, what is feminine, it's a changing, moving definition. But for many people, it's not. It's very, very siloed. It's very fixed. It's quote traditional. And if you fall out of that in any way, whether whatever your expression might be, or if it violates those very siloed gender roles, then you're other. You're this big other.
And we've heard a lot of people who are anti-gay for whatever reason. We know that it's the ick factor, but it's also because some of them have admitted it. They really have a problem with overly feminine gay guys. Versus just a normal acting guy, or really butch dykes, as you say, as opposed to just a normal acting lesbian. So,
and by the way, I think I'm Kiki.
You think you're Kiki? Okay. So I mean,
we'll give it to her.
What?
We'll give it to you.
We'll give it to you. So I mean, she's right. It's very much how you act You know, which is unfortunate.
But then, I think it falls out of the norm too, and they ought to be equally blasted then for these super macho guys.
Yeah.
They're over the top,
But unfortunately, that's something that's praised.
So somehow that fits in that same little silo. That drives me nuts.
Well, I mean, even the story that you just read before about the woman was fired.
But her fiance.
But her fiance was fired because they were living together.
And she was pregnant.
So they hired the fiance. Well, is that one of those Pat Robertson things that they thought she was a lesbian who got pregnant by her wife?
Yeah.
Who knew?
Yeah. And the fiance is just her boyfriend, and he couldn't have gotten her pregnant because they weren't married yet?
Exactly. Because you have to have a paper, a marriage certificate to reproduce.
Right. But,
yeah, right.
But the thing is, it is general.
If they would give us the piece of paper, then maybe we could reproduce. But we won't know until they give us the piece of paper. How about that, Pat Robertson?
But it is generally not because of your sexual orientation that you're fired. It is generally because of your gender expression.
Yep.
That guy's, he's just too feminine for us. That's your gender expression.
Yep.
So, so this ruling, I think it helps everybody, because there are lots of straight people who don't fit into the norms, don't fit into the stereotypes. There are lots of straight men, like Michelle Bachmann's husband, who are a little bit effeminate.
A little bit.
This week in Michelle Bachmann's husband, because we've done a lot of news over the years about her husband.
Wow. There was a story this week, and Lerone, you said you had another one. Pastor Gaylord Williams earned a good reputation among his evangelical ilk. He was an Indiana preacher, and he he always preached against gays. Well, the God-fearing 59-year-old was able to prove himself a servant of God to the elderly followers who filled the pews every Sunday at Praise Cathedral Church of God in Seymour, Indiana. Anyway, Williams got caught.
With a man.
Yeah.
Isn't it always? This preacher up in Fort Worth that we talked about last week, I did a story this week, just the local reaction to this guy. So I asked Candy Markham, who's a regular on our show, I asked Candy what she thought, and she said, I read that, or I watched that video that was posted, that he posted online, and she said, why is he saying, I'm not going to let homosexuals into my church? Why is he so concerned homosexuals are coming to his church unless he thinks he's a magnet for it somehow? And
or he thinks
what's he afraid of?
Yeah.
She just thinks he's protesting a little bit too much. Same thing with this guy.
It's like Pat Robertson, too. This woman calls in about her church won't allow dating, and he jumps right to the gays.
Right.
Yep.
Like, what's
and
that
in fact,
about?
he wasn't just caught with a man. He was caught in a bathroom groping other men.
Wow.
So, the whole thing, transgenders, we're letting men in women's bathrooms, right? Yeah, because that's all they want to do. Most transgender people that I know who go to the bathroom want to pee.
Right.
And it's these homophobic pastors who are the ones who are caught in a bathroom groping somebody. I mean, it's.
There ought to be
You had a similar story though, didn't you?
I do, but I don't have it. But Patti has one.
The quick rundown about the neighborhoods in the country, the kind of ranking.
Go ahead, because we have less than a minute.
Okay. 10 is Washington Square West in Philadelphia. Number 9, D.C.'s DuPont Circle. Number 8, Seattle's Capitol Hill. Then West Hollywood's Boys Town. I'm working up to number 1. Fort Lauderdale's Wilson Manors. Number 5, Manhattan's Hell's Kitchen in New York City. Number 4, Atlanta's Midtown. San Francisco's Castro is number 3. Chicago's Boytown is number 2. And number 1 is Oaklawn in Dallas, here in Dallas. Number 1 neighborhood in the country.
That is a surprise, but congratulations to us.
Yes,
we
absolutely.
are completely out of time. We will be back with more Lambda Weekly next week.
See you then.
KNON 89.3 FM in Dallas and Fort Worth, the voice of the people.
Business owners, tell KNON's listeners about your business. You can put your business or event on KNON. KNON currently has space available to run announcements for you. Tell KNON's listeners about your goods, services, nightclub, concert, or event. Help keep the voice of the people on the air while putting your information on the air. KNON's been named the #1 radio station in Dallas by both the Dallas Observer and D Magazine. Put your business with Dallas's #1 station. Call now for more information at 214-828-9500, extension 227. Or extension 233. For more information, go to knon.org and click on the Run Spots on KNON page. It's a great way for your business to support community radio while letting more people know about you.